I understand by the end of the year this is probably going to look different. Somebody's going to probably encourage me to use a better camera, better audio, not have the glare on my face from this side, get some facial reconstruction surgery, some things like that nature. So we'll be listening to some of those suggestions as we go. As you read Genesis, we'll start with the three chapters today, Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Remember, Genesis was written by Moses. It was not written as people tell. People tell us that these stories were handed down. That's not the case. God gave Moses these words at about 1500 BC. I'm looking up right now at a timeline that I have on my wall, which would probably go better over here, so we could hide things like I guess it's on this side. The electrical thing there. But when you live with three women and all the hair dryers and different apparatuses that we do, you have to have that thing right there with easy open access. But about 1500 BC, Genesis was written, given from God to Moses. It was not passed down generation by generation. It is 50 chapters, and it goes from creation all the way then to Joseph's dying in Egypt. And so as you read today, there's the first bit of trivia would be the first mention of color in the Bible is green, found in chapter 1. But Genesis chapter 1 gives us the story of creation. 6 literal days. There's no other honest way to translate it than 6 literal 24-hour days. And just a couple of interesting things there. I think that day 4 teaches something different about stars than probably most do. I do believe that creation was 6 days and it was 6,000 years ago. And there's another side thing. I do believe that the earth is older than that, but that's something I can use some Bible to back up on another video another time. But you see the creation story, and it doesn't leave room for evolution. It doesn't leave room for a gap where people were alive before and dying. It wasn't until, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. In chapter 2, it's interesting. You see a lot of scoffers, talk about the difference between, the creation story in chapter 1 and chapter 2. There is no difference. You think if they were liars who wrote the Bible, they would have done a better job of just stating, things out. Chapter 2 is just a little bit more detailed version of chapter 1. Gets a little bit more into the creation of Eve, the very pinnacle, and the last thing created was woman, Eve. And then we get to chapter 3, we get to the fall. It's interesting when you read that the blame, how it went backwards. Remember when we talk about this in church often, we're a threefold creature. When we're created in God's image, we have body, soul, and a spirit. And so what died that day was they died spiritually, not physically. And that was the confusion, and hence Jesus saying you must be born again in John chapter 3. But notice in the fall, a couple things we learned from that. Guys will tend to follow even though we know there's something about the relationship there. And remember, because the New Testament tells us that Adam wasn't deceived, but Eve was. And so as I read the fall, then God goes, curses the serpent, and then Adam blames Eve. Eve blames the serpent, and the whole world is brought into death and sin. The earth creation was very good up until that point, and then that sin is what then brought us into the situation we're in. Too many times we blame God for things going wrong, when in all actuality it was never his plan to have sin and death in the first place. It's sin and death's fault, Satan's fault, our fault, and never God's. God is perfect, God is just. And so as we read through the Bible this year, remember, the Bible's perfect. Every word's where it should be. Right. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you tomorrow.